Pawn Stars is one of the most successful reality shows in history. Since it first aired in 2009, millions have tuned in to watch deals, negotiations, and the colorful characters of the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas. But the man at the center of it all, Rick Harrison, has lived a life far more dramatic than anything shown on TV. Richard Kevin Harrison, known to the world as Rick, was born on March 22, 1965. His childhood was not glamorous. He grew up in California as the third of 4 children. His father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, later known to fans as the Old Man, was a Navy veteran, strict but hardworking. His mother, Joanne, did her best to hold the family together. But tragedy struck early. Rick's older sister, Sherry, was born with Down syndrome. She passed away at only 6 years old, leaving a permanent scar on the Harrison family. Rick carried that loss with him for the rest of his life. To make matters harder, Rick began suffering epileptic seizures at the age of 8. These health problems forced him to spend long stretches of time in bed. Instead of playing outside like other kids, he found escape in books. He devoured anything he could get his hands on, from history to physics. His favorite series was The Great Brain, about a clever boy always running schemes. Those stories shaped Rick's sharp mind and love for hustling, skills that later made him a successful businessman. School never held his attention. By 10th grade, Rick dropped out, deciding that chasing money was more useful than chasing grades. He began selling fake Gucci bags out of the trunk of his car, making more than most adults around him. While other kids studied, Rick was already wheeling and dealing. In 1981, the Harrison family's life changed. After losing money in real estate, they packed up and moved to Las Vegas. It wasn't easy. At just 17, Rick's girlfriend became pregnant. Their first baby was tragically lost to miscarriage, but the couple soon had their first surviving child, Corey Harrison, in 1983. 2 years later, they welcomed another son, Adam. Rick, barely out of his teens, was now a father trying to provide for a young family. His father, the Old Man, opened a small coin shop in Las Vegas that same year. Rick worked alongside him, learning the trade. By day, he bought and sold coins and jewelry. By night, he repossessed cars. It was tough, gritty work, but it gave him first-hand lessons in value, negotiation, and survival. For years, Rick and his father dreamed of turning their coin shop into a pawn shop. The problem? Las Vegas had capped the number of pawn licenses since 1955. They had to wait until the city's population hit 250,000. Finally, in 1989, they got their chance. That year, the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop opened its doors at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard, just a short drive from the Strip. Business was slow at first. Tourists didn't flock to pawn shops. Locals came in to pawn jewelry, tools, or anything of value to make rent or buy groceries. But Rick had bigger plans. He knew history sold. Sports memorabilia, rare coins, and antique items soon filled the shop's shelves. His sharp eye for value helped them grow. By the early 2000s, the shop was lending out millions of dollars a year. Still, no one could have predicted what was coming next. By the mid-2000s, reality TV was exploding. Shows like American Chopper and Deadliest Catch proved that ordinary people could become stars. Rick had been pitching his pawn shop as a TV show for years, but no network wanted it. They thought pawn shops were shady, dark, and uninteresting. Then, in 2008, Brent Montgomery and Colby Gaines, producers at Left Field Pictures, visited Las Vegas. They noticed that pawn shops weren't just businesses. They were treasure chests filled with history, drama, and unpredictable characters. They found Rick's shop and immediately knew they had their cast. Rick, with his sharp knowledge and dry humor. Corey, his son, representing the next generation. And of course, Austin Chumley Russell, Corey's childhood friend, whose goofball personality added comic relief. Anchoring it all was the Old Man, Rick's father, whose grumpy wisdom gave the show heart. The History Channel picked it up. At first, the title was Pawning History, but executives decided a clever pun would work better. That's how Pawn Stars was born. The show premiered in July 2009. Almost instantly, it became a hit. Viewers loved watching the shop's daily drama, the rare finds, the tough negotiations, and the quirky customers. One day, someone brought in a Super Bowl ring. Another day, it was a samurai sword or a Civil War pistol. Each item came with a story, and Rick was always ready to explain its history and value. By 2011, Pawn Stars was the highest-rated show on the History Channel, even beating scripted dramas. millions of people tuned in every week. Rick wasn't just a pawnbroker anymore. He was a household name. He published a memoir, License to Pawn, which hit the New York Times bestseller list. He guest starred on TV shows like iCarly. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop became a tourist destination, drawing thousands of fans to Las Vegas. But behind the cameras, Rick's life was far from perfect. His second marriage, to Tracy, ended in divorce in 2011. The same year, his son Adam quietly stepped away from the family business. Unlike Corey, who became a fixture on the show, Adam avoided the spotlight, working instead as a plumber. Even with fame, Rick couldn't escape personal struggles. The success of the show brought money, but it also brought lawsuits, family disputes, and devastating personal losses. And soon, Rick would face tragedies that no amount of television success could shield him from. Success on television brought Rick money, recognition, and opportunities. But it also changed his personal life in ways he never expected. By 2010, Pawn Stars had become a cultural phenomenon. The show wasn't just about antiques anymore. It was about the personalities inside the shop. Fans lined up outside the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, turning it into one of the most visited attractions in Las Vegas. At its peak, the store received more than 4,000 visitors a day, more than some casinos on the Strip. Rick, who had once hustled fake handbags to survive, was now signing autographs and flying across the country for interviews. Yet behind the smiles and handshakes, his home life was unraveling. His marriage to Tracy, his second wife, collapsed in 2011. They had been together for more than 2 decades, raising Corey and Adam together. But fame and constant filming put heavy pressure on their relationship. The divorce was finalized quietly, but it marked the end of one of the few stable parts of Rick's private life. A year later, Rick announced his engagement to Deanna Burdett, a legal secretary. They married in 2013 in a lavish ceremony in California, surrounded by friends, family, and a few celebrity guests. For a while, it seemed like Rick had found happiness again. But once again, the marriage wouldn't last. By 2020, he and Deanna had divorced, citing irreconcilable differences. While his relationships crumbled, the business continued to grow. Rick and the cast branched into spin-off shows, commercials, and public appearances. Rick became a spokesperson for products, appeared in documentaries, and even considered running for political office in Nevada. On the surface, he was thriving, but fame has a way of magnifying problems. By the late 2010s, Rick was dealing with more lawsuits, money disputes, and complicated family tensions than ever before. If there was one person Rick could always count on, it was his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, the Old Man. Fans of Pawn Stars loved the old man's gruff one-liners and old-school approach to business. He brought balance to the show, acting as the voice of reason when Rick or Corey got carried away. But off-camera, he was much more than a character. He was Rick's partner, mentor, and lifelong support. That all changed in June 2018, when the old man passed away at the age of 77 after a long battle with Parkinson's disease. Rick announced the heartbreaking news to fans on social media. He wrote that his father was his hero, his teacher, and his biggest influence. For viewers, the loss was shocking. For Rick, it was devastating. Not only did he lose his father, he also became the sole leader of the family business. The History Channel released a statement mourning the old man, calling him a beloved member of the Pawn Stars family. Fans from around the world sent condolences. The shop was flooded with flowers, cards, and tributes. But privately, Rick was struggling. The man who had built the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop with him from the ground up was gone. Every corner of the store reminded him of his father's presence. For the first time, Rick had to navigate fame, family, and fortune without the person who had always guided him. The loss of the old man marked a turning point. Rick now carried the full weight of the pawn empire on his shoulders, just as another storm was about to hit. In 2019, no one could have predicted what was coming. The COVID-19 pandemic changed the world, and Las Vegas was hit especially hard. Casinos closed, tourism stopped, and the city that never slept suddenly fell silent. Pawn shops rely on foot traffic. Tourists stop by to sell collectibles or buy souvenirs. Locals pawn items to cover rent or buy groceries. At first, Rick thought the pandemic might boost business. People were strapped for cash, after all. But the reality was very different. When lockdowns hit in March 2020, the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop had to partially close its doors. For weeks, tourists vanished and sales collapsed. According to reports, the shop, which normally generated over $1 million a year, made just over $37,000 in 2020. That's a staggering drop for a business built on volume. Rick tried to adapt. He lowered interest rates for struggling customers, gave people more time to reclaim their pawned items, and even ran parts of the business through a 24-hour night window. He told local news stations that Las Vegas had always given him opportunities, and now it was his turn to give back. But the damage was done. The pandemic strained not only Rick's business, but also his personal life. His third marriage, to Deanna, collapsed during this time. By 2020, they were officially divorced. Even though the shop survived, Rick knew things would never fully return to the way they were. The pandemic reminded him of how fragile success could be, and how quickly everything could be taken away. As if losing his father and enduring a pandemic weren't enough, Rick soon faced another unexpected challenge, this time from within his own family. In 2022, his mother, Joanne Harrison, filed a lawsuit against him. She claimed that Rick had cheated her out of money and assets from the family business. Specifically, she accused him of taking control of her 51% ownership in the pawn shop when she was in poor health and didn't fully understand what she was signing. The lawsuit alleged that Rick had stopped sending her regular $25,000 payments from her late husband's share of the business. Joanne also accused Rick of withholding financial records and hiding assets worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was a shocking revelation for fans who had always seen Rick as a family man. Suddenly, the Pawn Star was being accused of betraying his own mother. Joanne even sought a restraining order to stop him from selling or moving family assets. Rick denied the accusations, saying they were untrue and that his elderly mother was being manipulated by outside influences. Still, the lawsuit painted an ugly picture of a family torn apart by money. For Rick, the courtroom battle was painful. Not only did it damage his public image, but it also created a deep rift with the only parent he had left. The very foundation of the Harrison family was now under legal fire. Through all the ups and downs, Rick still had his children. Corey, his eldest, remained by his side at the pawn shop and on the show. But his younger son, Adam, lived a quieter life. He stayed away from Pawn Stars, choosing instead to work as a plumber. Then, in January 2024, tragedy struck. Adam Harrison, just 39 years old, was found dead in Las Vegas. The cause was ruled an accidental overdose of fentanyl and methamphetamine. The news devastated Rick. He shared a photo of himself with Adam on Instagram, writing, "You will always be in my heart. I love you." His post was flooded with condolences, including messages from celebrities and longtime fans. Corey also posted a childhood picture of himself with Adam, writing, "I'll always love you, Bubba." For a father, there is no greater loss than burying a child. For Rick, it was another heartbreak in a life already filled with so many battles. He used the tragedy to call attention to the growing fentanyl crisis in America, urging people to take it seriously before more families suffered the same pain. Adam's death left a permanent hole in Rick's life, a reminder that no amount of fame, money, or success can protect someone from life's harshest realities. Today, Rick Harrison stands as one of the most recognizable faces in reality television history. What began as a simple pawn shop in Las Vegas has grown into an empire, one that has shaped not only his life but also popular culture. Pawn Stars has aired for over 20 seasons, spanning more than a decade, and shows no signs of stopping. The shop itself remains a tourist hotspot, drawing fans from around the world who want to take pictures, buy souvenirs, or, if they're lucky, catch a glimpse of Rick himself behind the counter. Despite his success, Rick's story is not one of smooth sailing. He's weathered financial ruin, 3 divorces, lawsuits, and the heartbreaking loss of his father and his son. Through it all, he has shown resilience, the same persistence that once drove a dyslexic teenager to drop out of school and hustle on the streets of Las Vegas. Even now, Rick stays true to his roots. He continues to work at the pawn shop, side by side with Corey and the rest of the team. He makes appearances at events, films new episodes, and manages his other business ventures quietly in the background. And despite the cameras and the fame, he still insists he's just a pawnbroker who loves history and negotiation. For Rick, the pawn shop has always been more than a business. It's a symbol of second chances, a place where someone's forgotten item could turn into someone else's treasure, a place where history is preserved one artifact at a time. And while the lawsuits, scandals, and tragedies may continue to shadow him, Rick's legacy is secure. He turned a family pawn shop into a global brand. And along the way, he proved that perseverance and grit can take you from the bottom to the very top. Rick Harrison's life is a reminder that success never comes without sacrifice. He has lived through the highs of fame, the lows of loss, and the constant challenges of keeping a family and a business together in the spotlight. From a boy who once dreamed of being a millionaire to the man who built one of the most iconic shows on television, Rick has experienced it all. And while the world knows him as the shrewd businessman from Pawn Stars behind the scenes, his story is one of resilience, heartbreak, and survival. No matter what the future holds, one thing is certain: Rick Harrison's journey is far from over. The pawn shop doors are still open, the cameras are still rolling, and history is still being bought and sold every single day. Because in the end, that's what Rick has always done best: finding value where others see none, and turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. And perhaps that is the true legacy of the ultimate pawn star. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of Rick Harrison, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about the people and events shaping our world today.